Some of the most majestic landscape views in California are the great California redwood and sequoia trees. These trees can be seen up close at Sequoia National Park in the southern Sierra Nevada mountain range, east of the city of Visalia. This Central California region boasts more than 400,000 acres of natural beauty that is uniquely Californian. The park is known as the Land of the Giants because of its beautiful trees. The landscape features great mountains, foothills, deep canyons, a large cavern system, and of course, the world's largest trees. The park sits side by side with Kings Canyon National Park in the stunning San Joaquin Valley. Sequoia National Park was officially established as a national park in the 1890s. It features 14 campsites that include picnic tables, fire rings for outdoor cooking, and food storage boxes. It is a great place for a family vacation, with many of its campsites open year-round. But most of the popular attractions are its forests. The ancient trees are some of the oldest living organisms on Earth and draw millions of visitors worldwide. Redwood trees can reach heights of more than 375 feet. They are also closely related to the giant sequoia trees and are often mistaken for each other. They both are uniquely Californian as they do not grow naturally in any other region in the world. Redwood trees live up to 2,000 years and have branches that grow up to 5 feet in diameter. Its bark can grow up to 12 inches thick. The giant sequoia trees can live up to an astonishing 3,000 years and have branches up to 8 feet in diameter. Its bark can grow to an amazing thickness of 3 feet. Both trees have dark brown bark and look very similar, but the redwood thrives in coastal climate while the sequoia exists in a more mountainous area. In either case, they are a must-see California attraction. There are many law enforcement agencies in the United States, and especially in California. Some of the largest agencies in Southern California are the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Both of these police forces are some of the largest in the country. They handle a full range of police duties ranging from traffic citations to murder, rape, and robbery cases. There are also a number of smaller police agencies operating side by side with the LAPD and LA County Sheriff's Department. Cities such as Monterey Park have their own police force, while smaller cities depend on the Sheriff's Department for their law enforcement needs. Because of the unique nature of the state, California created the California Highway Patrol. The CHP, as it is usually called, is a police agency that is entrusted with patrolling the vast number of freeway miles that exist in California. The state was built during a time of great mobility after the advent of the personal vehicle. Because of this, the state has more freeway miles than any other state in the United States, with the exception of Texas. However, California has the most licensed drivers and by far the most registered vehicles. This made it necessary to create a police force dedicated to its highways. CHP officers are endowed with the same powers other police officers have. However, they do not have crime investigation team for any offense other than traffic-related crimes. Whenever the CHP first responds to a crime that is not traffic-related, its officers perform the same duties as a regular officer does. It then turns investigations over to the LAPD or Sheriff's Office depending on the location of the crime. The CHP has a long and storied history. Many young Californians, both male and female, are attracted to the CHP and enroll into its academy in Sacramento, the state's capital. One of the most beautiful and recognizable California landmarks is the Golden Gate Bridge in the city of San Francisco. The bridge spans the San Francisco Bay and is part of a network of 5 main bridges that cross the bay in the San Francisco-Oakland area. The region with its bay has one of the most breathtaking views in the world, and part of which is the historic Golden Gate Bridge. It is perhaps the most iconic and recognizable landmark in the entire United States. Construction on the bridge began in 1933, while the country was deeply mired in the Great Depression. Many people think the bridge was, in large part, responsible for the country's economic recovery because of the number of workers employed. The material used to build the bridge also contributed to the manufacturing, distribution, and transportation. The bridge connects San Francisco to the San Francisco Peninsula in Marin County through both California State Route 1 and US Route 101. Before the bridge was built, the only way to get from one location to the other was to go around the bay, or to take a ferry across. Construction of the bridge was controversial at the time. Many thought the project was simply too complex, expensive, and dangerous to build. The construction plan approved concentrated on safety for the workers who would be involved in the construction, and it worked well until February 17, 1937. Remarkably, only one worker had died up to that date, but on that date, a scaffolding collapsed, killing 10 men in the tragic accident. The bridge was completed later that year and has been in use ever since. It is one of California's great landmarks, with people from all over the world drawn to see it. One of the most historic and significant landmarks in the United States is the San Francisco cable car system. It is the world's only manually operated cable car system. It is run by the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency. The system dates back to 1878, when the California Street Line first opened. In all, there are 3 lines currently operating in the city and boasts a fleet of 12 cable cars. There used to be 23 lines in use throughout the city, connecting the diverse communities that make up San Francisco. The open-air cars are a major tourist attraction and are still used by San Francisco commuters on a daily basis. The simple reason cable cars were first used in the city was because of its landscape. San Francisco is very hilly, which makes it impossible for municipal buses to scale. The solution for this problem was the cable car. These cars are literally pulled by a cable up and down the steep hills of the city, making it easier for people to get from one end of the city to the other. There are 2 types of cars in use today: single-ended cars and double-ended cars. The single-ended cars have open-sided sections with seats that face outward to the street. The rear section of these cars is enclosed with seats facing the interior of the car. These cars seat 29 passengers. They travel in both directions by using a swivel-based turntable that turns the car at the end of the line. The double-ended cars are a bit larger and can hold up to 68 passengers. It has 34 seats and grips for an additional 34 standing passengers. The best feature of these cars is the pure fun they are to ride. People who ride the San Francisco cable cars are stepping into a part of California's history. Car chases in the Los Angeles area are a fairly regular occurrence. In 2013, there were over 700 car chases. Car chases also have become a source of entertainment. Many car chases are captured on video and broadcast live as they are happening. No one has to wait until the 6 o'clock news comes on anymore to find out what happened. People can tune into their local broadcast television station and see it happening in real time. These car chases are often captured with the help of the news channel helicopter. The helicopter follows and films the chase through the streets, reporting what streets the cars are passing through. People like watching car chases for many reasons. They are intense and filled with drama. A viewer never knows what will happen next. Will the driver give up easily? Does the driver have a weapon? Will the driver get into an accident? Will someone crossing the street get hit? Tune in to find out. Many channels see their ratings soar when they air car chases. They are just giving the people what they want. Police are not always happy with the media covering car chases live on the air. Police worry that people trying to escape enjoy the attention. Police feel that broadcasting car chases encourages people to escape. Police also worry that the attention brings innocent bystanders to the street. Someone could get hurt. The media insists they have the right to show car chases. They feel they are informing the public. Car chases happen for many reasons. Sometimes police will chase someone who stole a car. Other times the police may try to do a routine traffic stop. However, the driver with the broken taillight may have a warrant for arrest. So off he drives. In Los Angeles, places associated with death are often popular. One such popular place is the Department of Medical Examiner Coroner. When someone dies and the cause of death is undetermined or suspicious, the body is brought here for examination. It is the coroner's job to determine the time, cause, and manner of death. Sometimes the coroner will have to perform an autopsy, which is like an operation on a dead body to try to figure out how the person died. One of the reasons the LA Coroner's Office is so popular is because the number of famous people who have been examined there. Some of those people include Marilyn Monroe, Robert F. Kennedy, Michael Jackson, and Whitney Houston. The Los Angeles Coroner's Office is also so popular that there is even a gift shop where visitors can buy items like shirts, caps, and mugs with the coroner's logo on them. One t-shirt people can buy even says, "Our bodies of work speak for themselves." They even sell beach towels with body outlines. The store is open 5 days a week. They also have a website and a paper catalog for those who are not close enough to visit. The coroner's office claims the purpose of the store is to tell people how fragile life is and to create awareness and responsibility towards one's actions. Some people feel that having a store in the same place where the dead people are is disrespectful. There have been a number of television shows about the LA coroner's office. Some of these are reality TV shows featuring what workers really do there. An example is called Death Detectives. Other shows are fictional like Quincy Me. The ME stands for Medical Examiner, the person who performs the autopsies. On one of New York City's most famous avenues, Fifth Avenue, is Museum Mile. Museum Mile is a 23-block stretch that holds some of the most famous museums in the world. Museum Mile begins at 85th Street and 5th Avenue with the massive Metropolitan Museum of Art. Inside is thousands of years' worth of art and artifacts. A visitor can visit an entire Egyptian tomb, sit in a Japanese-style garden, view Renaissance paintings, and ancient Greek and Roman sculptures. There is even a gallery featuring musical instruments. In the summer, there is a rooftop garden where there are spectacular views of the city, especially of Central Park. The Guggenheim on 88th Street and 5th Avenue looks a little bit like a snail shell from the outside. When it opened in the 1950s, the swirling architecture designed by Frank Lloyd Wright was thought to be ugly by many. This museum focuses on modern art, but sometimes features special exhibits, like one they had a few years ago of the ancient Mexican ruins. The National Academy Museum of School and Fine Arts on 91st Street and 5th Avenue is the city's oldest art school, dating back to 1825. The Jewish Museum on 93rd Street and 5th Avenue tells 4,000 years worth of Jewish history. Up 10 blocks on 103rd Street and 5th Avenue is the Museum of the City of New York, showcasing the history of the Big Apple from its colonial start. One block up on 104th Street and 5th Avenue is El Museo del Barrio. This museum started as a space to reflect the city's large Puerto Rican migrant community. Now it features exhibits focusing on art from all over Latin America. Across the avenue is the Central Park Conservatory Garden, with a fountain that has a sculpture of 3 dancing life-size women. The Empire State Building may be the most famous building in New York City. It is called the Empire State Building because New York State is called the Empire State. It is 1,454 feet tall. Many people think it is the tallest building in the world. This was true when it was built in 1931. In 1970, when the World Trade Center was built, that became the tallest building. Now, the Empire State Building is the 4th tallest building in the US and the 23rd tallest in the world. Inside the building is mostly occupied by offices and stores. People can go to the top of the building where there is an observation deck. From the top, there are beautiful views of New York City, especially at night. Most people take one of the 73 elevators to the top. It takes less than 1 minute by elevator to get to the 80th floor. That is where there is a gift shop. Some people walk 1,860 steps to the top. Every year, there is even a race, with people competing to see who can walk up to the top the fastest. The landmark is not famous because of its height. In 1945, a small plane crashed into it. More than 30 people have tried to kill themselves by jumping off the building. In 1933, it was featured in the movie King Kong, where a giant gorilla climbs to the top and falls to his death after being attacked by airplanes. The building was also in the movie Sleepless in Seattle with Tom Hanks. At night, the top of the Empire State Building is lit up in different colors. It is red and green on Christmas, red for the Lunar New Year, and blue for Hanukkah. On the 4th of July, it is red, white, and blue. Most people don't know the full name of the Statue of Liberty is the Statue of Liberty Enlightening the World. She is a symbol of freedom, especially for many immigrants. When many immigrants came to the United States in the late 1800s, Lady Liberty in New York Harbor was a sign to tell them that they had made it to America. Inside the base of the statue, there is a plaque with a famous poem written on it. The poem is The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus. Many immigrants feel that this poem speaks to them and the reasons they came to America. One line of the poem is, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." Lady Liberty was not always green. She used to be copper-colored, but the years have caused the copper to change color. The 151-foot tall sculpture was a 100th birthday gift from France to the United States in 1886. It is located on Liberty Island, right off of the southern tip of Manhattan, New York City. The only way to get there is to take a ferry. Inside the base of the statue is a museum. To get to the crown, people have to climb 377 steps up a double spiral staircase from the feet of the statue. There is no elevator. People need to be in good shape to climb to the top. People used to be able to climb up to the torch of the statue, but it was shut down because it was dangerous. It was easy to fall off. About 4 million people visit the Statue of Liberty every year. People who can't go to New York can see the replicas in Las Vegas and other parts of the world. Rockefeller Center is a complex of 19 buildings. It is named for a famous New York City business magnate named John D. Rockefeller, who built a group of buildings from 1930 through 1939. The most famous building in the complex is the General Electric building, where NBC television studios are based. It is smack in the middle of Manhattan, New York City, between 5th and 6th Avenue, and between 48th and 51st Streets. The address of the G building is 30 Rockefeller Plaza. That's how the show 30 Rock got its name. The show was filmed there. Saturday Night Live, a popular American late-night show, is also filmed there. Visitors can get tickets to see how a show is taped and can also tour the studios. Visitors to Rockefeller Center can visit the plaza, which becomes an ice skating rink in the winter. Every year, a huge Christmas tree is placed there and thousands of people attend the tree lighting ceremony, which also features famous singers. In the spring, summer, and fall, the plaza becomes a cafe. In the middle of the plaza is a statue of the Greek god Prometheus. His myth states that he brought fire to the world. 200 flags from all countries of the United Nations surround the plaza. Radio City Music Hall is another famous building in Rockefeller Center. Many musicians give concerts here, but it is best known as the home of the Rockettes, a dance company named for Rockefeller Center. They are famous for their kick lines and are best known for performing in the Radio City Christmas Spectacular, an annual musical holiday stage show. Manhattan is a small island that is one part of New York City. New York City, the Big Apple, is actually made up of 5 sections called boroughs. These boroughs are Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and the Bronx. Manhattan has the most people of all the boroughs, about 1.5 million. Even though it is the smallest borough by size, if you send a letter to someone who lives on Manhattan, don't write Manhattan on the envelope. You should write New York, New York, like the famous Frank Sinatra song. Because the island is so small, most people live and work in tall buildings. Some of these buildings are called skyscrapers because it looks like they are touching the sky. Some famous skyscrapers in Manhattan are Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, 70 Pine Street, Trump Building, GE Building, and Citigroup Center. Manhattan is connected to other boroughs by a series of bridges and tunnels. The most famous bridge may be the Brooklyn Bridge because of its brick arches. The New York City subway, a massive mass transit that mostly runs underground, also connects the island to the rest of the boroughs. Manhattan, like the other boroughs, has many different neighborhoods, many of which are named for the ethnic communities that first lived there. Some of these neighborhoods include Little Italy, Little Germany, Little Brazil, Chinatown, and Koreatown. One of the most famous parts of Manhattan is Times Square. Times Square is called the crossroads of the world. Every year, millions of people gather there on New Year's Eve to watch an illuminated crystal ball drop. There are many theaters around Times Square. Most of these theaters are on Broadway, a famous street considered the home of the American theater industry. Another famous Manhattan street is Fifth Avenue. A part of the avenue features expensive designer stores like Tiffany's. Fifth Avenue is also famous for its Museum Mile. For many years, gambling in the United States was legal only in the state of Nevada. Nevada is a western state that is east of California, south of Oregon and Idaho, west of Utah, and north of Arizona. It is a desert state where little rain falls during the year. It is a little more than 275 miles from the city of Los Angeles, which is where most of its visitors come from. Driving from Los Angeles is about 4 hours. Las Vegas, which means the meadows in Spanish, was established by the Mexicans in the mid-1800s. Much of what is now the southwestern part of the United States was then part of the Mexican Empire. The city was a railroad town, established in 1905, and the first legal casinos appeared in 1931. Las Vegas is now a gambling town, where people from all over the United States come to vacation. Its population is under 2 million, making it the 30th largest city in the country. Its original population in 1905 was only 5,000. Much of the city's growth is due to the gambling industry. Many states have since legalized gambling, including New Jersey and California, but Las Vegas remains the number one tourist city for gamblers in the U.S. Today, some of its largest and most beautiful hotels include Bellagio, Flamingo, Caesar's Palace, Treasure Island, Mandalay Bay, and Wynn. These hotels are on Las Vegas Boulevard, which is commonly called the Strip. With its nearly year-round sunshine, beautiful casinos, and variety of gaming options, Las Vegas remains the best location for gambling in the U.S. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was one of the most successful and well-liked children's show in the history of public television. Public TV differs from the more common commercial television in that it is not funded by advertising revenue. Public television is a network of television stations throughout the country that is dedicated to bringing alternative programming to the people of the United States. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood ran from February 1968 through August 2001 and was hosted by the show's namesake, Fred Rogers. It was a half-hour children's show that featured the popular Rogers as host. It is often referred to as the Mr. Rogers Show. Rogers began his show in 1953 on a PBS station in the northeast part of the country as the Children's Corner. He performed as a puppeteer, and it was aired on live television. There, Rogers developed many of the characters that would become famous as the show progressed. In 1967, his show went on national TV stage and remained there until 2001. Rogers' style and calm demeanor made him an instant celebrity who was well liked by both children and adults. In his early life, Rogers studied to become a Presbyterian minister, but didn't like how children's programming was being presented. He began writing children's songs and soon began his own local show on public television. During the next 3 decades, Rogers became a true American icon through his show. His great compassion, morality, and patience were possibly his most liked characteristics. Rogers was not only a great TV personality, he was also a human rights advocate. He received the Presidential Medal of Freedom as well as the Peabody Award for meritorious public service. Rogers was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame and has received approximately 40 honorary degrees. The Cinco de Mayo, or 5th of May, is a holiday celebrating Mexican Independence Day. In the United States, before 1776, much of the southern and western states, such as Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, and California, were part of Mexico. Following the war between the U.S. and Mexico in the 1800s, these states became part of the United States, but there still remained a very large Mexican population. The Latino population is the largest single ethnic group in the country. It accounts for 17% of the nation's population, and 63% of those Latinos are of Mexican origin. The Cinco de Mayo is a large celebration in the country's southwest region. It celebrates the Mexican victory in the Battle of Puebla against France on May 5, 1862. Curiously, the day is celebrated more in the United States than it is in Mexico itself. In Los Angeles, the city celebrates the event with the Fiesta Broadway, which is the largest Cinco de Mayo celebration in the world. More than 500,000 people come to downtown LA to participate in the street fair that covers 24 square blocks. The celebration takes place on the last Sunday of April. There are rides, games, and especially food at this celebration, and it is growing every year. Los Angeles is not the only Southland city to host Cinco de Mayo celebrations. The cities of Corona, West Los Angeles, and Commerce also have events, and the famous Olvera Street celebration in downtown LA is also very popular. One of the most unique Cinco de Mayo events takes place in Hancock Park District of Los Angeles. It is called the Cinco de Mayo. This celebration is an annual charity event that began in 1999. It is a private party that benefits the homeless by providing shelter and support. Cinco de Mayo is a truly American celebration. On December 7th, 1941, the United States of America was attacked by the Imperial Japanese Navy at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The surprise attack was intended to destroy the American Pacific Fleet that stood in the way of Japan's complete domination of the Pacific Ocean during the 1940s. The attack was coordinated with attacks in the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Pearl Harbor was attacked by more than 350 Japanese airplane fighters, bombers, and torpedo planes that were launched from 6 aircraft carriers. The early morning attack sank 4 U.S. battleships, and 4 more were heavily damaged. 6 of the 8 battleships were restored and returned to service, but the Japanese also destroyed or damaged 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, a mine layer, and an anti-aircraft training ship. In addition, 188 U.S. aircraft were destroyed, with many of them on the ground. The attack was devastating. It took the U.S. years to recover from all the damage caused on that fateful morning. However, the Japanese were unable to destroy their main targets, the Navy's aircraft carriers. By what some call a stroke of luck, the U.S. carrier fleet was out to sea at the time of the attack. The country was in shock at the news of the disaster. U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt called the attack cowardly and declared 7th as a day that will live in infamy. On December 8th, the United States formally declared war on Japan. This plummeted the country into World War II, which Roosevelt had long hoped to avoid. Soon after the United States' declaration war against Japan, Germany, which was a Japanese ally, declared war on the U.S., and the country was now fully involved in the greatest war in the history of the world. America is one of the most diversified countries in the world. It is comprised of many different cultures from Latin America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. It is truly a melting pot of diversity. All these cultures have come together to create a new culture, an American culture. Many of the traditions, customs, religions, and celebrations of these cultures have been adopted into American culture, including funeral traditions. Traditional American funerals are basic. They usually include some sort of religious ritual, followed by a procession to the burial grounds, and a small ceremony at the gravesite, but these vary depending on the culture. At most American funerals, the deceased person's family sends out a death announcement called an obituary. These obits normally serve to pass information to others about the deceased and the time and day of the funeral event. At the church service, the deceased is usually eulogized by friends and family. This is where a person goes up to the front of the crowd to say a few things about the deceased and how he or she affected their life. The procession usually takes the form of a caravan of private cars and trucks that follow the hearse, which contains the deceased's coffin and remains. At the gravesite, another small ritual takes place where the deceased is given a blessing from a member of the clergy. Friends and family are then allowed to say goodbye to the deceased. There is an American tradition of picking up a handful of soil and tossing it on the coffin as a way of saying farewell to the deceased. The family then gathers at a home or restaurant with some of the attendees to have a meal and to exchange stories before going on their way. Most cultures in the U.S. have adopted this traditional American funeral ritual, but many include features that are unique to their individual culture. One of the most significant dates in the history of the United States is November 22nd, 1963. That is the day President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, while riding in an open-air car. The president was visiting Texas for the first time since his inauguration in January 1961. Kennedy was one of the most popular presidents in the history of the United States and still remains so today. His death shocked the nation for several reasons, but mostly because it was televised on live broadcasts. Kennedy was the first president to appear on television at a time when most Americans owned a TV. He was not the first president to be televised, but previous presidents who appeared on TV did not reach the general public because before 1960, not many Americans owned a set. Kennedy was warned not to ride in an open-air car that day by his bodyguards, but he wanted the public to see him live. He did not want to be hidden behind an armored car. According to the official government commission, Kennedy fell victim to a single assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, but many Americans dispute that finding to this date. Police say Oswald shot the president from a building while Kennedy rode in his car with his wife. The mood was festive at the time as the city of Dallas welcomed the president to Texas. Kennedy was a handsome, young president who was the youngest man ever to reach the presidency. Oswald later killed a Dallas police officer during his escape from the crime scene, but was soon found hiding in a movie theater. He required police protection from an outraged public and was held in protective custody. Oswald, who was a former member of the U.S. military, was unhappy with the president for his policies, but never admitted to being the assassin. Conspiracy theories involving rival political parties, the Cuban government, and organized crime have also been advanced as to who actually killed Kennedy. Generally, people's class is defined by how much money they make. In the U.S., generally, there are three classes: poor, middle class, and rich. Some people also think there is another class in between poor and middle class called working class. United States culture is based on the idea that people can move up the economic ladder and become middle class or even rich if they were born poor. This is the idea of going from rags to riches. Moving up the class ladder is not easy though. Higher education needed to get a good paying job is expensive. Class in the United States is more than just how much money a person makes though. Education, what job a person has, where they live, and the culture all play a role in what class a person will be classified as. For example, a person with only a high school diploma and a low-paying service job may be considered poor or low class, while a person with a PhD who owns their own company would be considered high class or wealthy. In a way, this makes sense because high-paying jobs usually require a high-level education. But for some people, class is something you are born with. For example, the children of billionaire Donald Trump were born rich and upper class without having done anything to earn that status. Gender plays a role too in how someone can move up the economic ladder. Women earn less than men do, so it is harder for them to accumulate wealth. Race also plays a role in how much people earn and their ability to move up the economic ladder. In the United States, most families require both the man and the woman to work in order to support the household. Rosa Parks is a prime example of how an ordinary American can change the world around her. She was born in 1913 in the southern state of Alabama. Parks became famous for challenging a discriminatory policy in the city of Montgomery, Alabama. During the 1950s, Black Americans in the South were not allowed to ride in the front seats of public buses if a white person needed that seat. Blacks were expected to get out of their seats and go to the back of the bus, which was designated as colored only. On December 1st, 1955, Parks refused to obey the bus driver's order to surrender her seat to a white passenger who had boarded the bus. Even though Parks was seated in the colored-only section, the bus was filled and she was required by law to give her seat to the white rider. Parks was arrested and charged with civil disobedience. She later said she had grown tired of giving in. Her arrest and subsequent trial made Parks a national symbol for the civil rights movement. Her arrest also led to the Montgomery bus boycott that was a political and social protest campaign against racial segregation. Although the boycott only lasted 21 days, it was instrumental in the Supreme Court decision to declare Alabama's practice of segregation unconstitutional. Parks has remained a symbol for the civil rights movement, even after her death in 2005 at the age of 92. She has been called the First Lady of Civil Rights by the United States Congress and the mother of the freedom movement. She has been honored by the U.S. government with prestigious awards such as the Presidential Medal of Freedom and Congressional Gold Medal. She has been honored with her own museum in Michigan and has received several other civil rights awards both before and after her death. Chicago is known as the Windy City. Some people think this is because of the breeze that blows almost constantly. The city is located in the state of Illinois, on the shore of one of the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan, which is the fifth largest freshwater body in the world. Chicago may also be called the Windy City because of the wind tunnel effect created in downtown by many tall buildings. Skyscrapers are an important part of Chicago's history. The first skyscraper in the U.S. was built in the city in 1884. At only 10 stories, it was impressive for its time. The skyscraper was eventually demolished. Chicago is home of the other famous firsts. It was the birthplace of the refrigerated rail car, mail order catalogs, the car radio, the TV remote control, the first Ferris wheel, the first steel railroad, the first planetarium in the Western Hemisphere. Chicago is also home of the first blood bank and the first drive-in bank. It is also the home to the Lincoln Park Zoo, the oldest public zoo in the U.S. Maybe the Windy City should be called the City of Firsts. Chicago is the third most populous city in the U.S. after New York City and Los Angeles. A little more than 2.5 million people live in the city that has more than 100 neighborhoods. President Barack Obama used to live in Chicago. Nearly 40 million people visit Chicago every year. Many of them visit the Willis Tower, formerly known as the Sears Tower. It is the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. It takes only a minute to get up to the 103rd floor skydeck, thanks to some of the fastest elevators in the world. From the skydeck, visitors can see 4 states: Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin.